All right, welcome back to A Feminine Touch God's Way. Abby and I are really excited to jump into today's topic. We're going to be discussing stewarding the home. So will be a lot of practical tips along with some just our experiences in general. So let's dive right on in.
Hi, and welcome to A Feminine Touch God's Way, where I, Abbey Parish, and my sister-in-law, Jeshua Parish, discuss God's design for women in the family, the church, the community, the workplace, and so much more. We are so excited for you to listen in on our stories and experiences as we turn to the Bible and seek God's will for our identity as His daughters, so that together we can reap the blessings created within the biblical boundaries of womanhood.
All right, let's get after it, Jay. Okay, the home. I really love this idea because it truly impacts all of our listeners, you know?
The home?
Yeah. I mean, everybody has to live somewhere, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I just think a lot of our other episode topics have been, it applies to some of our listeners, like some are married, some are not, some, are in the home, some aren't anymore. So I just think this one's going to be fun.
No, that's a good point. Everybody has a place where they rest their head at night, even if it's temporary.
Yeah. So, Abby, what are your initial thoughts? I'm curious. When you hear stewarding the home, what comes to mind?
Oh my goodness. So I actually, whenever you first shot the topic at me, this was several months ago. It's whenever you were still daydreaming about if we would have a podcast or not. This was one of the podcast ideas that you had, one of the episode ideas. And I actually got really excited about it because I think about how to be a good steward of my home actually fairly often. So, but then whenever push finally came to shove and we were going to actually have an episode that talked about it, I went blank. So I had to take some time to just journal and write down some thoughts of how to take care of your home well. But initially what comes to my mind whenever I hear oh, how can you care for your home? Or just whenever people start talking about their home in general. I mean, now that I'm talking about the home, I think of that saying where it goes home is where the heart is. But whenever I hear people talk about their home, I do genuinely think home is one of the places where you get to pour your heart into what you are doing and who you're doing it with there. God has given us such a limited, small amount of people, really, if you think of everyone on earth, that we get to spend the majority of our time with. And those people normally reside within our home. And I first of all think of home as just a blessing. And I also think of it as a task that the Lord allows women specifically to put their hand to. So I'm also very grateful for the home because I think Scripture gives pretty detailed, or at least relatively clear, blueprints on the roles of women in the home. And it just shows that God really cares about how we live and where we live and how that living is done. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. I have a couple notes that I'm wanting to dig into a little bit more deeper later as we talk, but I'd like to shoot the question back at you. What are your thoughts whenever you hear someone just talk about home in general, and then whenever they start talking about maybe a biblical view of the home?
Yeah, so I would say my view of the home has changed a lot in a short amount of time.
For the good, or for how so?
Well, I think the reality of the home and the tasks that it requires has always been there, but I've been ignorant of that for a large part of my marriage, even just honestly failing to see the value in cleanliness or cooking or I don't know, that work. I think it's very easy. Honestly, full disclosure, even tonight I bristled because, after dinner, Gabe is gracious enough to tag team the kitchen with me. And I just made a comment of I'm usually one that do the dishes. And he's like, well, that is your domain. And I don't I just bristled because I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, you just think I do wash the dishes, you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard for me to take a step back and think, okay, yeah, I do the dishes, but why? You know? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think so. One of my goals,
So,
sorry,
sorry, go ahead.
I was,
Well, I was going to say, so why do you do the dishes?
I wish I could say I do the dishes every time because I love the gifts that the Lord has given me to steward. And I understand that me doing the dishes allows my husband to be more rested and enjoy life and feel rejuvenated so he can go provide and like my husband or my son can eat. But really, it changes day to day. Like full honesty, sometimes I have to really fight to find the joy in doing the dishes. Sometimes it's just like pure obedience, like, okay, Lord, this is the work you have set before me. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to trust that you are good and that this is honoring to you. And like, I say that all to say, like, I fully understand that I'm not expecting our listeners to be like, oh my goodness, I'm a homemaker. I love doing the dishes and I love dusting and I love cleaning up random stains that I have no idea how they got there on the floor and they've been there a hot minute. Like, no, it can be grueling work. Like, and the amount of love or joy you have for the work in its of itself doesn't give it value or take away the value, you know?
Mm. Like it's something that has value regardless of how you feel about it.
Yeah. And so this was made so clear to me. Maybe I'm getting a rabbit trail, but I think it's pertinent. Like when I was
No,
pregnant,
go for it.
I
Mm-hmm.
literally was so sick. I could barely get off the couch. And it sounds so dramatic, but like there was just a time where like doing the dishes, it was a matter of like trying not to throw up while I'm doing the dishes. And
Mm-hmm.
Gabe was so gracious and stepped in and filled the gap in so many ways. Like he was working, there was a time in our marriage where he was working his full-time Army job, covering for his boss who was gone for leave and doing his full-time Army job, and then coming home and completely caring for the house and feeding me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this
Wow.
sucks. Like I am, like it not being able to do that work in a way validated the work because I understood the cost, like when I can.
Like you knew what it looked like whenever it wasn't done.
Yeah. And it was just sheer chaos.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So
Like there was a need. You realized that it was genuinely meeting a need, not just one that scripture says is a need, not just one that your husband says is valuable just to be nice, but you were genuinely seeing in real time, no, this is a service. And it is an honorable job. It is a task that I am I don't know, like a task that you're worthy of doing, I guess, in a way.
yeah.
It's not beneath you like you might think.
Yeah. It's tempting. In my flesh, it's tempting to think that it is beneath me. Like just honestly, I know that it's not, but it's tempting because I think I've tried to stay away from it. But have you ever seen like the social media post where the video or the woman is like, she's kind of like propping herself up as a martyr as she's like drudgily cooking and cleaning her house, like those weird videos?
No, I've seen the trad mom phenomenon, which is about like just being a traditional wife or a traditional mom who stays at home and the husband does the income, not the dual income, but the husband is the sole income of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I've seen them kind of honestly, they're not trying to do it, but in a way they're kind of making fun of what it means to be a wife and a mom because they're acting as if it's, oh, all you have to do is stay home and look pretty. It's very 1950s type of vibe of what a wife is. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but
I don't know, maybe. I think that
I've seen those.
The trad mom thing is like a hot line right now that I don't even fully know what it means, but
just means traditional mom.
Well, I think it's got more connotation. I don't know. Like I hear all these wild stuff about it, depending on who you're talking to. But
oh, like what?
I couldn't even tell you. I don't even want to get down that rabbit hole. That's not about stewarding the home. But
never mind. Sorry, guys.
No, but seriously, like I think it can be easy to throw a pity party and be like, woe is me. God won't let me work. I had a baby in my case. And I just, the most important thing I did today was cook and clean. But like, really, that's like I say this because I think a lot of women struggle with this heart posture, and I have been there. And sometimes I struggle with that too. But
see,
no, you go.
And it's crazy for me to hear you say that because you're like, oh, all I did today was cook and clean. And I mean, you didn't say this outright, but basically like all you did today was serve your family. And literally, I am at a state in my life right now where I am so crazy, hectic, busy. That's actually one of my prayers at the end of each night is, Lord, I look forward to the day where my life can slow down and I can just cook and clean.
Mm.
So I understand where you're coming from because it makes sense logically, and I can understand and from what other women have also told me, and also from where I've been at different points in my life of like, I feel like I can do more than this. But right now, as someone who is doing more than that, I long to do exactly what you're doing.
Mm.
And not in a woe is me kind of way, but in this other work that I'm doing isn't fulfilling like I thought it would be. And this other work that I'm doing isn't quite sitting well with my spirit. It doesn't seem like I'm quite doing the right thing. I don't think I'm in sin. I don't think I'm doing the wrong thing, but it just doesn't resonate in the same way that doing what you get to do does. And I know it sounds simple, but I would love for that to be my schedule tomorrow. And it's not because I'm talking to you late at night and I'm tired. It's just because that just sounds delightful to be able to take dominion of whatever space the Lord has given me and be able to make it beautiful. Because that's actually something I wanted to talk about. And I want to hear your thoughts on this too. But like, the Lord loves beauty. And I think that is so evident just by looking out at creation. Like, I was mowing today and I stopped mowing and I just looked at this beautiful bush that was entirely covered in flowers. And yes, it's covered in flowers because the flowers have pollen in them and the bees use the pollen to make honey. So it's useful, but also it doesn't need to be that beautiful, and it was. So we can know just from creation and from scripture itself that God loves beauty. And I think one thing that we get to do as homemakers is to translate the beauty that God puts in creation into our own homes. So just like God cares for the earth, we in a similar way get to mirror Christ, get to mirror the Lord as we care for our own homes that he's given us. So I want to hear kind of what your thoughts are on that, of what it looks like for you to be like, okay, I am stepping up into this role and not trying to shirk it, because I don't think that you are, and not trying to view it as bad, but like, what are ways that whenever you are in a right mind of like, yeah, this is a noble task, how do you try to cultivate beauty in your home?
Yeah, so it's actually, I've got so many thoughts ping-ponging in my brain, but I'll say it's
sweet.
The timing of you asking that's kind of interesting because a dear friend of mine gave us a hutch for our living room space. And I was like, this is such a cute hutch. I have no idea how to decorate this at all.
Yeah.
But I know it has potential. Like, I don't know. And another friend of mine.
Are you talking about the yellow one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it does have potential, guys. It's cute and it fits the vibe of her living room. It's kind of like it was made for it, but it's not.
Yeah. So another friend of mine, Leah, she's like really, like, her home is beautiful. Like, you just step in and you're like, wow, I just feel cozy and at home and I love the aesthetic. So I legit asked her, I was like, girl, you have this part of your home figured out and I'm trying to figure it out. Would you help me decorate my hutch? And
oh my gosh, that's so brilliant.
She did. So we went like all to the thrift stores and like we found like it was just so wild. Like, she would just like, we'd be walking amongst like tons of junk because it was like an antique store or just different places. And she would just out of the rubbish pull out this thing and I would just walk past it. But she's like, this is so cute. And she'd hold it up and be like, okay, well, now that you're holding it up, I can see that. And she just like came home and she like arranged everything and rearranged it. And maybe I'll put a picture with this episode because I'm kind of proud of it. And it looks just, I just love it. It like, I look at that little space. I'm like, and now it makes me think of her too. So I just want to tell our listeners, like, if there's a skill set, you're like, I don't know how to do that. Find somebody who does. And like, it was kind of embarrassing, like, honestly, to be like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. But it was so reassuring for her to be like, oh, well, so-and-so showed me and I can show you. And I was like, really? You know,
Yeah.
like it can be an opportunity to
And
bond.
That's what I was about to say. Like, not only is she your friend and your neighbor, but she's also someone who you have covenanted with at your church.
Yeah.
So you're getting also this sibling in Christ fellowship and this hard skill that you're learning. That's so cool. I'm so happy that you got to do that.
It's so pretty. I'll send you. I'll. I think I can link a picture. We'll link a picture.
I'm looking forward to it. It'll be our first link, guys. So
probably.
It's kind of monumental. Our first photo link.
Yes. Okay, I kind of want to move on a little bit because I have some ideas too. So one thing that the Lord has shown me is, I don't know why, probably just the timing of hormones after having Neo, but moving to Georgia, just like, so framework, Gabe and I have not been in Georgia for a super long time. We only got here in October. And it's April when we're recording this episode. So it's not been a super long amount of time, but let me tell you what, Southern ladies know hospitality. And it has been so cool to walk into so many different homes and just see the way that these women have imprinted themselves on the homes. But also one thing, like, so my goal in our time in Georgia is I want to learn how to be hospitable and I want to learn how to cook. And
those are good goals.
Yeah. And like, it's really been put you out of your comfort zone, just like forming relationships, like just opening my door and saying, yes, you can come over for dinner. And then it's also forced me to ask these questions of like, so I genuinely don't think there's a right and wrong way. Like, I'm not going to tell our listeners, like, this is the day you should wash your sinks and this is the day that you should, like, schedules are
like, it's
good.
not just a checklist.
Well, yeah, but like every family is different. Like, I would encourage I would encourage all of our listeners to think like, what goal do I want to achieve with my home? Because like, think of your home as a tool that the Lord's given you to share the gospel. Like, that is just like totally reworked my framework of just what even is the home, right?
Okay, I really like that. Could you actually expound on that a little bit whenever you said your home is a tool to expand the gospel? Because I think I understand what you mean, but our listeners might not quite.
Yeah, so, okay, before I moved, and during our time in Texas, I would say that I viewed my home as a safe haven for myself. Like, that's where I went to be alone. And it was really hard for me to even get outside or bring somebody inside because it was just rough, pregnancy.
Being in Texas was rough or your home was rough?
Both, I would say. The Lord is showing me a lot. Like, he kind of showed me, I feel like he's like, okay, well, since you don't value these things right now and you're also pregnant and then you have all these obstacles, like, I kind of learned the value of the home by really sucking at my job first. Like, just like total bare minimum debt and just like there was no beauty or very little at least. And that just wasn't my priority. Like, it was just hard, and like coming here, I feel like the Lord's challenged me and been like, your home is not your safe haven. I am your safe haven. Your home is a tool to advance my good news, my gospel, my truth. So with that mindset, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it just makes it so much harder to be selfish with my resources if those resources, the whole point of them is to proclaim God's name.
Yeah, it definitely flips it on its head.
Yeah. And
what helped you realize that?
So it was a few things. But honestly, one of the biggest things was the book your sister Chloe gave me for Christmas was the Gospel Comes with a House Key by Rosaria Butterfield. I would recommend that book to any young lady who is trying to figure out how to tend a home or like what even the point is home. I will say I don't live the same lifestyle as Rosaria, but I commend her. But I just don't think that is for everybody. I think it could be for some people for a season. But yeah, the Lord just showed me, and that's another thing. There are seasons like there are seasons where you are more hospitable, and then there are seasons where you need to tend to your family more. So like,
yeah,
it is first for your family, and then it is for others. You know, like if you're neglecting your husband, then like you're just failing the mission entirely. You know,
yeah, like if you're allowing yourself to have company over all the time, but your kids and your husband are not being cared for, then you're missing the mark.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think your family is pretty hospitable. Like that was one of the things that struck me about you guys when I first was meeting you. I mean, you housed me for, I don't know, 2 months for that internship.
It was like 6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah. If you guys hadn't been willing to open your door, like I probably wouldn't be married right now.
Probably. Well, at least not to Gabe.
True. So like, I don't know. Have you noticed that? Like, what are things that your mom has shown you or that you've learned with people just being around your dinner table, you know?
Well, one thing that I've realized as far as hospitality goes, whenever it comes from learning from my mom, is I've learned that you should be hospitable even when you don't want to. And that's not a bash on my mom at all. It's actually a high praise to her. Because I can remember, especially even just 5 years ago, when hospitality was harder for her. Not hard where she wouldn't open our doors and we never had people over, because that's not the case. But we've really kind of amped up the volume. We have people in our house every week now. Sometimes multiple times a week, just depending. But I can remember in the past where it would be something that my mom could be anxious about or thinking that the house needed to be perfectly clean for. And just seeing her so humbly submit those worries to the Lord and basically say, after the encouragement of my dad, because my dad was like, Cindy, our people aren't coming to our home because they want to see flowers on the table and the shoes lined up perfectly. He says they're coming to our home because they're hoping to get a hot meal and they are looking forward to the fellowship that will be had here. And it took a while for my mom to really absorb that. But once she did, she honestly has just ran with it. And it's been really cool to just see her embrace that truth, because that's true. Most people are not going to care if there's dust on your bookshelf. And if they do, that's okay. But you can also say, well, that's just not what I offer here. So it's been cool to see my mom just sanctified through homekeeping. And then it's been also awesome to just see the people that have been blessed by it. Like there have been so many people, even just in the last year. I'll give you an example. A good family friend of ours was over at our house about a year ago at this time. And it was right before we were about to remodel our kitchen. And he was standing at the island and he goes, wow, have you guys ever stopped and thought about how many hours and hours of fellowship and sanctification have taken place right at this island? And now it's going to be gone. It's going in the dumpster tomorrow. And my mom was like, I haven't, but I'm so glad you said that because it's been a lot. And she basically just reminisced, and I reminisced too, of like, this is the table that we grew up eating cereal at, and it's also the table where we had so many heart-to-heart conversations, and it's also the table where so many people would either come and share their joys with my family or their sorrows with my family, and they'd be prayed over, and so many tears were shed over that, not over the table itself, but physically, people would cry while sitting at those bar stools and being surrounded by my family and at the island. So just the reality that because of years of faithfulness, and some of those years begrudging faithfulness, God has really blessed not only us, but others. And it's been really encouraging to think about, because now we're 20 years down the road of my family being hospitable. And it's very, very, I don't have a better word for it other than just wonderful to be able to see the fruit of my parents' labor. And now that my sister and I get to benefit in of also knowing how to be hospitable as far as opening our home up to people.
Yeah. Wow. That is so cool to think about. So wild.
Yeah, the table thing definitely got me tearing up the day we were about to do the demo for the kitchen. I was like, so many people have had so many good talks here and we're about to throw it away. But I'm over it now. We've had several good talks over other tables, so it's fine.
Good. So I'm curious what you would say to this question. Maybe, state the obvious. I have a home that's mine and you don't. And I would just love for you to speak into how do you view your role in the home, even though it's not technically yours? Like, how do you steward your home well? And like, what would you say to one of our listeners that might be begrudging that opportunity because they're thinking, well, it's not my house, you know?
Oh my goodness. I'm actually really glad you asked about that because I did want to talk about it, but it's now's the perfect time, I guess. So I'll unpack that and kind of chew on it for a little while with our listeners. So yeah, my home, I mean, I used to be embarrassed by this and now it's just kind of the facts of life, but I'm 25, so I'm definitely old enough to have my own home. And I'm also capable enough, like financially and things like that, to have at least an apartment, but I choose to live at home. And I choose to live at home because scripturally, or at least what I feel like the Lord has revealed to me personally of what I'm supposed to do is to be living with my family. And I also do it for the fellowship of my family and just because I'm a member of this family and I want to be with this family and I have the opportunity to do it. So that's why I'm still at home. It's not because I'm a bum, but I'm 25 and I live at home. But yeah, it's not the house that I own. I don't pay a mortgage on it. I'm not the one who has to manage all of the electric and water bills, but I do live here and I spend my time here. And for a while, it was very hard to think like, oh man, I'm at this house and it's not necessarily my house. It's my mom's house. She gets to choose how it's decorated. She gets to choose what we put on the walls. She gets to choose what paint we use. She gets to choose what the candles we light. All of those choices are hers and not mine. But my mom has been very gracious to allow me to be kind of a sub-regent, if you will. And I get to call a very generous amount of shots in the home, which is so kind of my mom. But all of them are subjected to her and ultimately to my dad. But since the home is more my mom's dominion than my dad's, she's kind of the chief and I'm just kind of a sub-chief. But there have been times where I have bemoaned the point of, man, this isn't my house, and I've had a bad attitude about it. But where I am right now and where I have been for, I'd say within the last year for sure, steadily. I think there's ebbs and flows, but I've been pretty steadily at this point of, I am blessed to be here. And just because this drywall isn't mine doesn't mean that I'm not welcome here. My parents have made that abundantly clear. And it doesn't mean that I shouldn't take ownership over what goes on here. So whenever I'm outside, I pick up trash if I see it in our yard. Whenever I'm inside, I do the same. If there's dishes in the sink, I clean them. And the places that are community spaces, I take care of them just as if it was I, the one who was solely responsible. And so does my mom, and so does my dad, and so does my sister, Chloe. Everybody who lives here understands that we're a part of this team, and we call it the parish team. And we all serve one another by keeping our home not only livable, but pleasant. So there's that. And like I said, there's also been areas where my mom has been very generous of letting me have little instances of dominion in little chunks and areas of the home. And then I also think that right now, my largest, most intense, most potent area, the most potent room that I have dominion in is my bedroom. And I am very diligent to make sure that I try to make the bed every day. I try to make sure my clothes get put up at the end of the day when I'm done working, even if I'm exhausted. I try to keep it generally clean because this is the space that God has given me now. This is the space that I have to steward today. And if I am a poor steward of my bedroom, which is just a small space, then then I'm not training myself well. I'm not preparing myself well for the future. If the Lord were to give me an apartment or a home of my own or a husband of my own, how am I going to encourage cleanliness in my future home if I'm not even applying it now in my own home and in my own bedroom? So I think that if you're to look at your house and go, wow, this is a bummer, this is all I have and it's not even mine, I really want to challenge your thinking and help you see that, yeah, but that would be true even if you had your own home because everything's the Lord's. So just because you don't have to pay a mortgage, how about instead of being upset about that, you rejoice because you're saving money. You're getting to be with the people that love you most because they raised you, and you're getting to be in training. And it's such a blessing because I know those training wheels will come off one day, whether it be through marriage or through me having to maybe move out for whatever reason that I don't know of right now. Or if my parents die one day, like I'm going to have to live somewhere. So those training wheels won't be on forever. And I will be grateful for this time that I have had to learn how to care for a house well. And genuinely, the bedroom is the first spot and everything else should radiate out of there.
Yeah, I can attest to your, what shall I say, cleanliness habits because I roomed with you in college for quite a time. And I joke with Gabe that you did not prepare me for what it'd be like to live with him because you're like literally like, you'll like clean underneath my feet as I'm walking. And it cracks me up because we're kind of different in that way. But Gabe,
we are different in that way.
Gabe is not that way. He's like leaving a trail behind his feet as I'm walking.
Yeah, that's true. But I will say, and you can correct me if you think that I'm being dishonest, but I don't think I'm a neat freak. Like I'm in my bedroom right now recording this in my little pillow fort. And because listeners, I have to have pillows around me to cancel out the noise of my room. But that aside, my bed is made, but it's not made beautifully. There's a basket of laundry that's folded but not put away. My closet is disorganized. So it's not like I don't know, like for example, there's dirt on the ground and I can see it and I haven't cleaned it yet because mowing season is upon me and I know I'll sweep it up today and it'll be there again tomorrow. But I do have a general level of a standard that I try to adhere to because I understand the value, not just in, there's not dirt on the floor. I think your home should be lived in. But yeah. I understand the value of I am putting in the work now to discipline myself and my body and my mind to make the place and space where I live to be hospitable to myself and others who might enter it. And if I personally were to venture into my sister's room, I would enjoy the company of her and the room better, I know, if it was just a little tidier. And I'm not saying Chloe's room is not tidy, because it is, but I'm just saying, I know if someone were to venture into my room, I would rather them want to stay than to want to get out.
Yeah.
So no, that is...
but the difference between you and me is like, you just described all those things that you noticed. I don't notice the things. I'm like, oh yes, I should probably okay, maybe this is a good transition. We've got about 10-ish more minutes left, and I would love to get more into like practical things that you and I have found just to like help us in this goal of creating a lovely space in our homes. But like, I don't notice usually unless it's bad. So I have to like put in like rhythms. Like I live by rhythms. So like I've got my planner. I'm actually reading my notes off of my planner because guess what? I write down my bullet points for this podcast on Monday, and I did that then. And I have like rooms.
It was in the planner. It's official.
But like I have to write out a room for each day to go and deliberately like look for the dirt and look for the things because I won't notice it.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, I can't not see it.
Yes.
Unless I'm really tired. Like there've been weeks this year where I've been really tired, but if I'm able to get a good night's sleep, I see it the next day.
Yes. Yeah, so that's crazy. That's just like a fundamental difference between you and me.
I totally believe you.
Because I went in college.
Yeah. I wasn't going to throw you under the bus, but
I cleaned so little in college, yet lived such a tidy life being your roommate. It was bliss, I'll tell you what.
That's so funny. And to the college's credit, they definitely had one day a week where your room is supposed to be clean. So that helped both of us, for sure.
Well, that's kind of what gave me the idea to do this. I'm like, well, I had one day a week to check for all the stuff, and I just had one room then, but I got more rooms now. So I'll just spread the rooms out for different days of the week. And
that's so smart. So what are some of your practical tips aside from checking weekly to make sure there's not dead bugs on the ground and whatnot?
Well, also having a kid will show you all your messes. I'll tell you that. But anyway,
because he'll eat them.
Yeah, literally, he'll eat everything. No, I have found that a planner is helpful for me because I know that I kind of let the day get away from me. So that has been very helpful. just to reestablish a planner in my life.
Yeah, that makes
and like
sense.
I write stuff, not just house stuff, but like do this portion of your Bible study, and I map that out, and just like earn my workout schedules there. So just like it helps me. Okay, this is what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
And I also find rhythms help, like for anybody with a kid, because like, and maybe your situation is different, but I just found like having a strict routine was just not really realistic with with a kid. So I just be like, okay, it's nap time. Let me look at my lists. What I have to get done. Okay, this, and this. I can get 2 of those done while he's taking a nap. I don't know when that nap will be.
So you're a list person though. Like you kind of have this stuff written down that you need to do in a day or a week, and you try to chip away at it.
Yeah. So like I've got the meals written out on the calendar. Yeah. I can't do it on a whim. Like I need thought into it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely am also a list person. Like I just enjoy that dopamine shot every time you check something off the list. That is genuinely something that I get little pleasure in. I mean, so I get a little amount of pleasure from it, and I enjoy that little amount of pleasure.
I don't even check it off the list. Maybe I should start doing that. Maybe I'll like,
oh my gosh, you should start doing it. You'll feel so much better.
Oh, another practical tip would be, I kind of already said this, but like ask people that do it well how they do it.
Yeah, like what you did with your neighbor.
Yeah, like ask a mentor. If you don't know how to cook, ask somebody to help you, show you how they made a dish, you know?
Yeah, and they will love that.
Yeah.
I have another practical tip as far as homemaking goes, and this is for individuals who do not live alone. And even if you do live with other people, I still think you can apply this, but remember that you live with others, and your standard of cleanliness might be higher or lower than the people around you. And that's actually something that my family has just had to have conversations of, because my dad has a lower standard of cleanliness than my mom and my sister and me. So like to him, and Jeshua, I'm sure this is true for you and Gabe to some extent, but like to my dad, a room is clean, even if to me, I'm looking at it and I'm going, oh my gosh, the newspaper's out and the dog hair's all over the floor from where you just brushed him, and your shoes are out, and you've got 3 expository like Bibles or like just study Bibles that are out on this table, and this is not tidy, this is not clean, this is disheveled. So you can see where you can see where my what I'm anal about. But anyways, so just remember that just because you live with other people, and even though you might have a standard of cleanliness, doesn't mean that you get to be the one who enforces the standard. Ultimately, if the people who are the heads of those homes get to enforce that standard. So if they want to raise the bar and they say, no, it's supposed to be cleaner than you want it to be, then you need to meet that. And if they say, no, we're not going to stress out over if there's 15 books out on the table, and if you want to put them up, that's fine, but don't try to make us do it, then you need to submit to that too. So I encourage you, remember who your head is, and make a concerted effort to try to please them in the home that you share with them.
That's good. Another practical tip that I have found in a different vein, when we have company coming over, and Gabe's on board with this too, thankfully, but like our house stays at a pretty basic level of cleanliness that I'm comfortable with. Like I don't need my house immaculate to have somebody over, because to me it's more important to have somebody over. But
yeah, that's good.
We will be like, okay, so-and-so's coming at 5:30. So at 5, can we set a 10-minute timer and do like a fast pickup? And whatever
we do that
is
too.
Left after 10 minutes, like, okay, that's what's lived in, and whatever's not is,
Yeah.
That's really helpful.
There's actually a name for that. It's called a Hollywood clean.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, we just call it do a 10-minute clean or whatever. But it's called a Hollywood clean, and it's called the Hollywood clean because people in Hollywood are supposed to be superficial. So they're like, oh, just do a really quick superficial clean. Like it's not deep cleaning. You're not like getting on your hands and knees and scrubbing. You're just doing like a quick pickup.
Yeah.
And it's called a Hollywood clean.
Well, I love it. I think I don't know. Just knowing that it's only going to cost me 10 minutes is, I don't know why, but it helps. Another thing.
Sorry. I was just going to say, set that timer. Stick to it.
Yes. I also just want to encourage you guys, like this, it's okay to have seasons of different standards. Like just like full disclosure, like I figured out my meal planning. That's what I focused on last month. And this week I'm trying to like nail down a better like cleaning schedule. And that's okay. Like take it one thing at a time. Like look around and say, how can I serve?
Yeah.
How can I use this house as a tool to share the gospel? What's the biggest thing inhibiting me? Well, I feel uncomfortable with my house as mess people come over. Okay, well, then tackle that first. Like try to put systems and rhythms in place that set you up for success. You know, don't worry about the meal planning right now, or don't worry about, you know, whatever else it is, but just do it one thing at a time.
That actually, I know we're getting close on time, but I have one more that ties into what you're saying. Do you mind if I share it real quick?
Yeah, real quick.
Okay. So also don't be afraid to let your family that you live with help you, or other people too. Like when people come and they offer to help clean the dishes while you're talking, let them do it. Or if you're in a really busy state of life right now, like myself and my dad right now, we're just very busy. Chloe and mom are picking up the slack that we're leaving behind, and I'm so thankful for that. So don't be so proud where you think that you need to do it all or it's not going to be done right, because that's not true.
That's good.
Allow others to help you, and it will be sanctifying for both you and them. And at the very least, it will be a service to you. And I encourage you to allow help, to make room for help. So yeah, that's my last one. Do you have any other last minute tips you want to share?
I just want to leave our listeners one more time with, I guess, just the thought of like, ask yourself, what is your home? What is it for to you? Who are you trying to serve? How do people feel when they walk in? Like, ask yourself those big overarching questions and then like parcel it down. I just want to reiterate that because I just feel like that's a total game changer, to change your heart first and then pursue God's will and representing the gospel. So I hope this was.
And if you don't have a home, ask it for the spaces that you do have more dominion over.
Yes.
And if you like what I mean by that is if you're someone living in your parents' home or a friend's home, ask yourself like, hey, the space that I am in charge of, how can I take good care of it well? How can I steward it well? Yeah. But Jay, you were about to close us, so go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I hope that this was helpful and encouraging, maybe even challenging, because that's good. And we look forward to talking with you guys next week.
Yeah. See you later.